Pokémon is constantly changing. In fact, as of late, during the Switch era, Pokémon never stopped changing. Every game was different from the last without a single exception so far, and while this does make the games have a specific feeling to them, it could also be one of the reasons things are never truly optimized. So hey, I'm not so ace trainer, and why doesn't it ever feel cooked? Let's get into it. The biggest criticism as of late regarding Pokémon is how the games look. There are constant complaints about the visuals and the frame rate of the games, and for the most part, I'd say they are right. I think they exaggerate a lot in some instances, but I can't deny that I've also looked at parts of the games and sometimes I thought to myself, that's not great. It's been talked about a lot, but back in the day, Pokémon looked really good in pixel art and it was really hard to find some big flaws in the games, as hard as you're gonna press the like and subscribe button, of course. People then say that 3D ruined everything, but I'd argue that 3D is when we can actually see that following up on something is good. X and Y, in my opinion, look awesome. I always love that style and it fits the region incredibly well. But when you pick up Auras, a game that continues with that same style, it looks way more polished. There are incredible features like the soar mechanic that make use of the 3D approach perfectly. Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon look basically the same, but the latter run slightly better because they had more time to be optimized and they're in the same style. If I want to go further back in time, I could actually go before the 3D era and talk about how Platinum is basically a version of Diamond and Pearl that runs better, while still having the same style as well. I know that time will always be a problem for Gamefreak, maybe not by their own choice, but it is a problem for them. But these games prove that if you stay on a specific lane, you can then just evolve from your previous highest point, you can just climb from there. There's no need to start it all over again. We saw this as well during the Switch era, but in a different way. While we didn't have two games with the same visual approach, we did have DLC for Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. And it felt like the DLCs were closer to the right approach as they evolved from the main game. They were closer to what the game would be if they had continued optimizing that specific approach for the longer time. The Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra had full-on wild area-like places, but this time they weren't as empty as in the main game. The Teal Mask had more personalized areas that made Kitakami feel not as empty as Paldea, and the Indigo Disc added the synchro mechanic and flying, building from what we had in Paldea as well. Kinda like Auras added the soaring mechanic after X and Y. Now imagine if they had built from Sword and Shield. Take that style and use it to make the next game a better version of that, instead of simply starting all over again. It's still very early to tell since we don't have a true trailer for Pokémon Legends Z2A, but I find it very hard to believe that they'll continue the same style, the same approach that they had with Legends Arceus. In the perfect world, I am absolutely wrong and they take what they had in Pokémon Legends Arceus, which was a very fine starting point, and just improve on it, giving us a better new Legends game. But why don't they always do this? I believe that the only reason is to make every region feel like its own thing. I understand this, but Pokémon games come out every single year. This is the first off year since 2015 after all. You don't need a new approach that often. We had Pokémon Sword and Shield in 2019 and then Scarlet and Violet in 2022. Then there were two games in between them, every single one of them looking different from the previous one and from the following one as well. We do not need this. Gamefreak doesn't need this. We could have ended up with the best version of one specific approach, and instead we got the not-so-best version of multiple approaches. I have nothing against the changes in gameplay and features. I know that every region has its specific culture and relationship with Pokémon, and those things reflect that. But I also believe that that would be enough. You don't need to trap yourself every single time to make something new. Sometimes a big improvement can feel like something new. But then, how would I fix this? It's easy. I would have one visual approach for every single console. At max, I think this should mean two visual approaches, giving them the main game, the DLC, and the remake or prequel or whatever as room for optimization. But if I had my way, even the following generation, so the second one in the same console, would follow the same approach, and that would give us a two-generation cycle with games becoming better polished and better optimized as they were released. This is something that we haven't had in a while. Time constraints, the pandemic, constant changes, none of that helps us get a good enough product, at least in the technical sense. But even if I assume that time constraints are due to outside pressures, and of course the pandemic was something they couldn't control, the constant changes are something that they absolutely could control, and I am sure that that would end up getting them on the good side of basically all the Pokemon community once again, which is something that frankly I don't think we'll see anytime soon. And that is all I have for you today. I believe that Pokemon should stick to one style per console, but what about you? Do you enjoy the constant changes? Let me know in the comments down below. And now, like the video if you like it, dislike if you don't, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon content, and also ring the bell so you know when the next video is out. Also, you can become a channel member or check out my merch in order to further support the channel. I'd be forever thankful for that. You can follow me on social media or check out one of my streams here and on Twitch. All the links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.